My name is Zaira, and the day I walked out of that house with nothing but a backpack and my daughter's hand in mine, I became someone I didn't recognize. Standing in that courtroom 18 months later, watching him realize he'd lost everything while I held all the cards, that's when I understood that revenge isn't about destruction. It's about becoming so powerful that the person who tried to break you can only watch as you rise from ashes they thought would bury you forever. Have you ever looked at someone you once loved and wondered how you ever let them make you feel so small? Let me back up. 5 years ago, I was a different woman. Softer, maybe. More trusting, definitely. I met Arman at a friend's wedding in Lahore, one of those elaborate 3-day affairs where everyone's dressed like royalty and pretending their lives are perfect. He was charming in that dangerous way, the kind of man who makes you feel like you're the only person in the room even when it's crowded with hundreds. He worked in his family's textile business, drove an expensive car, wore suits that cost more than my monthly salary as a graphic designer. When he asked for my number, I felt chosen. We married within a year. Traditional ceremony, all the blessings, all the promises. My parents were thrilled. He came from a good family, had money, seemed devoted. "You've done well," my mother said on my wedding night, adjusting my heavy dupatta. "He'll take care of you." She was right about one thing. He did take care of me, the way a prison guard takes care of an inmate. It started small, the way these things always do. First, it was suggestions about my clothes. "That shirt's too tight, Zaira. What will people think?" Then it was my job. "You don't need to work, Janu. I make enough for both of us. Focus on making our home beautiful." Within 6 months, I'd quit the design firm where I'd been building my career. Within a year, I'd stopped meeting friends without his permission. Within 18 months, I'd given birth to our daughter Amara, and I'd become a ghost of the woman who'd walked down that decorated aisle. The irony is that I thought I was being a good wife. In our culture, there's this narrative. Sacrifice yourself for your marriage, for your family, for peace. Adjust, compromise. My mother had done it. Her mother had done it. Why shouldn't I? Because adjustment shouldn't feel like suffocation. Armand's control was methodical. He tracked my phone, installed cameras in our apartment under the guise of security, questioned every rupee I spent even though I had no income of my own. He'd go through my messages, my emails, even my sketchbook where I used to draw when I couldn't sleep. "Why are you drawing other men?" he'd ask, staring at a random character sketch I'd done. "Are you thinking about someone else?" The worst part wasn't the accusations. It was how he'd apologize afterward. Bring flowers, take me to expensive restaurants, promise he was just stressed, just worried, just loved me too much. And I'd believe him because I wanted to. Because admitting the truth meant admitting I'd made a catastrophic mistake. When Amara turned 2, things escalated. I'd started taking freelance design work from home, just small projects, business cards, logos, social media graphics. I needed something that was mine, something that reminded me I had skills beyond cooking and cleaning. I kept the money in a separate account Armand didn't know about. My little secret, my tiny rebellion. He found out, of course. He always found out. I was at my laptop when he came home early from work that day. Amara was napping. I was finishing a logo for a local bakery. Something simple but creative that made me feel useful. I didn't hear him come in until he was standing behind me, staring at my screen. "What is this?" His voice was cold. "Just a small project. The bakery down the street needed—" He slammed my laptop shut. I jumped, my heart hammering against my ribs. "I told you that you don't need to work. Are you trying to embarrass me? What will people think? That I can't provide for my wife?" "Arman, it's not about that. I just wanted to—" "Wanted to what? Disobey me? Go behind my back?" He grabbed my wrist, his fingers digging into my skin. "How much are they paying you?" "It's just 5,000 rupees. It's nothing. I was going to—" "Where's the money?" I should have lied, But I was tired of lying, tired of hiding, tired of being afraid in my own home. In a bank account, the silence that followed was worse than any scream. His jaw clenched, his eyes went dark. Then he smiled, and that smile terrified me more than his anger ever had. "Show me," he said quietly. That night, he took my laptop, my phone, and the bank card to the account I'd opened. He transferred every rupee back to his account. Then he sat me down at the kitchen table while Amara slept and explained very calmly that this was for my own good, that I clearly couldn't be trusted with money, that he was protecting me from my own poor judgment. "You're my wife, Zaira. Everything you have, everything you are, it belongs to this family, to me. When are you going to understand that?" I nodded because what else could I do? I had no money, no job, no way out. My parents lived 2 hours away and believed Armand was a model husband. My friends had slowly disappeared over the years, pushed away by his jealousy and my own shame. I was trapped and he knew it. But something shifted in me that night. Something hard and cold and calculating settled into the place where my trust used to live. I realized that I had two choices. I could break, or I could become someone he never expected me to be. I chose the latter. The next morning, I started planning. Not impulsively, not emotionally, methodically, like a military campaign. First, I needed information. I became the perfect wife again. Compliant, quiet, agreeable. I cooked his favorite meals. I didn't argue, I smiled when his family visited. And while I played my role, I watched. I listened. I learned. Our man wasn't just controlling, he was careless. He left his laptop open, his emails unguarded, his phone on the counter while he showered. He never suspected that the broken wife he'd created was documenting everything. Every time he lost his temper, I recorded it on an old phone I'd hidden in a kitchen drawer. Every threatening text message, I screenshot before deleting. Every time he monitored my location or went through my things, I noted the date and time in a journal I kept inside a hollowed-out cookbook. I learned about his business too. The textile company he was so proud of, it was struggling. He'd been taking loans from his father, from banks, from private lenders. He'd forged my signature on documents, making me a guarantor for debt I knew nothing about. If the business failed, I'd be liable too. They could come after me for money I never spent, for decisions I never made. That's when I got angry. Really, truly angry. Not the hot, explosive rage that burns out quickly. The cold, surgical fury that sharpens your mind and steadies your hands. 6 months into my planning, I did something that felt impossible. I reached out to my old boss from the design firm. Rahim Uncle had always liked my work. I sent him an email from a library computer during one of the rare times Armand let me leave the house alone to buy groceries. "I need freelance work, remote, confidential. I can't explain why, but I'm good and I'm desperate." He responded within an hour. "Come back to work for me. Full-time remote. I'll pay in cash until you get a bank account sorted. No questions asked." I cried in that library, silently so no one would see. For the first time in years, I felt like maybe I wasn't as powerless as I'd believed. The next challenge was money. I couldn't open a bank account without Armand finding out. He monitored our credit reports obsessively. So I started collecting cash. Every time he gave me money for groceries, I'd skimp, buy cheaper brands, cook simpler meals, pocket the difference. Every rupee from Rahim Uncle's projects I'd hide. In books, in Amara's toy box, taped under drawers. It was slow, tedious. But within 3 months, I had 30,000 rupees. Not much, but enough to disappear for a while. Then I focused on the legal side. I found a lawyer through an online women's help forum, a woman named Sadia Mirza who specialized in domestic abuse cases and financial fraud. I met her during another grocery trip, in a cafe far from our neighborhood. She listened to everything, the control, the surveillance, the forged documents, the recordings I'd made. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and studied me. "You've built a strong case," she said, "but you need to be smart about this. If you want full custody of your daughter, if you want to make sure he can't come after you financially, we need to do this right. One chance. No mistakes. Tell me what to do." Over the next 2 months, Sadia helped me gather everything we needed. We filed a police report about the forged signatures. We compiled the recordings of his threats. We documented his financial mismanagement. We prepared custody papers citing his emotional abuse and controlling behavior. And we did it all in secret, building a case so airtight that when we finally moved, he wouldn't see it coming. The hardest part was waiting. Living in that house, pretending everything was normal while knowing that any day, any moment, he might discover what I was doing. I had nightmares about him finding my hidden phone, my documents, my escape fund. But I'd learned patience. I'd learned to wear a mask so convincing that he actually started to relax around me. He thought he'd won. He thought I'd finally accepted my place. He had no idea I was about to shatter his entire world. The day I left, Armand was at work. Amara was at my mother's house. I dropped her off the day before under the pretense of giving myself time to deep clean the apartment. Everything I owned that mattered fit in one backpack: documents, cash, a few clothes, Amara's favorite stuffed rabbit. I took nothing of value that he could claim I stole. I took pictures of everything: the apartment, the cameras he'd installed, the tracking apps on my old phone. Then I walked out the door, leaving my keys on the kitchen counter next to a single envelope. Inside was a letter, short, simple, devastating. "Armand, I'm leaving. I'm taking our daughter and I'm filing for divorce. You tried to make me disappear, but instead, you made me invisible enough to plan my escape. Don't try to find us. My lawyer will be in touch." I didn't go to my parents' house. I'd rented a small apartment across the city using cash, in my maiden name. Sadia had helped me set it up, a place he couldn't trace. When I picked up Amara from my mother's, I told her the truth. All of it. She cried. She apologized for not seeing it sooner. My father called Armand's family, and they defended him, called me dramatic, said I was breaking up a good home. I didn't care. For the first time in 5 years, I was free. But freedom came with consequences. Armand lost his mind when he got that letter. He called me 67 times in one day. When I didn't answer, he called my parents, my siblings, mutual friends. He showed up at my old workplace looking for me. He hired a private investigator. He filed counter custody papers claiming I'd abandoned our home, that I was mentally unstable, that I'd stolen from him. That's when Sadia went to work. The court hearing was set for 6 weeks after I left. During that time, Armand's lawyer tried everything: character assassination, financial manipulation, even attempting to claim I was an unfit mother because I'd left our daughter with my parents when I ran away. But we were ready. Sadia presented the recordings, all of them: his threats, his surveillance, his controlling behavior. We showed the forged documents that made me liable for his business debts without my knowledge or consent. We brought in my old boss, who testified about my work ethic and character. We presented bank statements showing that every rupee I'd earned had been taken from me. We had timestamps from the tracking apps on my phone showing he monitored my location constantly. And then Sadia did something brilliant. She called his father to the stand. Armand's father, the patriarch of their family, the man who'd built the textile business from nothing, was asked directly about the loans, the debts, the financial instability. Under oath, he admitted that yes, Armand had forged my signature. Yes, Armand had been hiding the company's problems. Yes, he'd been worried about his son's temper, but had convinced himself it was just stress. I watched Armand's face as his own father dismantled his lies. He looked betrayed, shocked, like he couldn't believe his family wouldn't protect him. Welcome to my world. The judge, a stern woman in her 50s, listened to everything. Then she made her ruling. Full custody to me. Supervised visitation for Armand only after completing a court-mandated anger management program. Dissolution of my liability for his business debts due to fraud. Financial support for Amara, but nothing for me. I told Sadia I didn't want his money. I wanted my freedom, and I wanted to support myself. And finally, a restraining order preventing him from contacting me directly or coming near our home. When the judge announced her decision, Armand stood up and started yelling about how I'd destroyed him, ruined his reputation, taken his daughter. Security had to escort him out of the courtroom while he screamed that I was a liar, a manipulator, a vindictive woman who couldn't accept his love. I sat there, silent, watching him unravel, and I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not anger, not even pity, just a profound sense of closure. Outside the courthouse, Sadia hugged me. "You did it," she said. "We did it," I corrected. "No," she said firmly. "You did this. The moment you decided you deserved better. Everything after that was just strategy." She was right. The months that followed were strange. I worked from home, rebuilt my career, started getting bigger clients. Rahim Uncle recommended me to other businesses, and my portfolio grew. I enrolled Amara in a good school near our new apartment. I reconnected with friends I'd lost, explaining what had happened without shame or apology. Some understood, some didn't. I learned that was okay. My parents struggled with it, my mother especially. In her generation, you stayed no matter what. You made it work. But eventually she came around. She saw how Amara and I laughed together now, how I'd stopped flinching at sudden movements, how I'd started drawing again in the evenings after Amara went to bed. She saw that her daughter was alive again in a way she hadn't been for years. "I'm proud of you," she told me one day, holding Amara on her lap. "I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. I'm sorry I taught you that suffering was noble." "You taught me what you knew," I said. "I'm teaching Amara something different." Armand tried to fight the custody arrangement twice. Both times the court upheld the original ruling. Eventually, he stopped trying. I heard through mutual connections that he'd moved to Karachi, started over with his father's business, was seeing someone new. I hoped, genuinely, that he'd learn something, that maybe he'd become a better person. But that wasn't my concern anymore. 1 year after I left, I did something I'd been planning for months. I launched my own design agency, small at first, just me and one other designer I'd mentored. But it was mine. Every decision, every client, every creative direction, mine. I called it Zaira Creations. And under the logo, I added a tagline, "From ashes to art." Some people thought it was corny. I didn't care. It meant something to me. The real victory, though? It wasn't the business or the custody or even my freedom. It was the day Amara, now 4 years old, looked up at me while we were drawing together and said, "Mama, you're really good at this. You should be an artist when you grow up." I laughed. "Baby, I'm already grown up." "Then you should be an artist now," she said matter-of-factly, returning to her crayon masterpiece. "I am," I told her. "I really am." 2 years after I left that house, I was invited to speak at a women's entrepreneurship conference in Islamabad. I almost said no. Public speaking terrified me, and part of me still worried about being visible, about someone from Armand's family seeing me and causing trouble. But Sadia convinced me to do it. "Your story matters," she said. "There are women out there right now living what you lived. They need to know it's possible to leave. They need to see what survival looks like." So I went. I stood on that stage in front of 300 women, and I told my story. Not all of it. Some things are too private, too painful. But I told them about feeling trapped, about planning my escape, about the courage it took to walk away with nothing but hope and determination. When I finished, the room was silent. Then someone started clapping. Then another person. Then the entire audience was on their feet, applauding, and I saw women crying, nodding, holding each other's hands. Afterward, at least 20 women came up to me. They told me their stories. Some were still trapped. Some had left. Some were planning to leave. I gave them Sadia's contact information. I told them about the resources I'd found. I looked each of them in the eye and said the words I'd needed to hear 5 years ago. You are not crazy. You are not dramatic. You are not the problem, and you are strong enough to do this. One woman, probably in her 50s, wearing an elegant sari, grabbed my hand and said, "My daughter is in a marriage like yours." Was. She won't listen to me. Can I show her your speech? Of course, I said. Tell her that loving herself isn't selfish. It's survival. That night, lying in my hotel room, I thought about Arman. I wondered if he ever thought about me, about what he'd lost. Not just his wife and daughter, but the chance to be part of something real. He'd wanted control so badly that he'd strangled the life out of what could have been a partnership. He'd been so afraid of losing power that he'd lost everything that actually mattered. I didn't hate him anymore. Hate requires too much energy, too much attention. He'd taken enough of my life. He wouldn't get my anger too. Instead, I felt something close to gratitude, not for what he did, never for that, but for what I became in spite of him, for the strength I'd found in my worst moments, for the woman I'd built from the ruins of who I used to be. 3 years after I walked out of that house, my agency had grown to 10 employees. We'd worked with major brands, won industry awards, been featured in business magazines. I'd bought a house, actually bought it, with my name on the deed and everything. It was small, but it was ours, mine and Amara's, with a garden where she could play and a studio where I could work. I dated sometimes, cautiously. I'd learned to recognize red flags early, to trust my instincts, to walk away at the first sign of control or manipulation. Some men were wonderful, and it still didn't work out, which was fine. Some men were terrible, and I blocked them immediately, which was also fine. I was learning that being alone was better than being with someone who made me small. Amara was 6 now, bright and curious and unafraid in ways I'd never been at her age. She didn't remember much about our old life, just fragments, images of a father she saw twice a month under supervised visits that he rarely showed up for. I never spoke badly about Arman in front of her. When she asked questions, I answered honestly, but without bitterness. "Why doesn't Baba live with us?" she asked once. "Because Baba and I weren't good together," I told her. Sometimes people love each other, but they hurt each other too. And it's better to be apart and healthy than together and hurting. "Did he hurt you, Mama?" I paused. She was too young for the whole truth, but old enough for honesty. "Yes, baby. Not in ways you could see, but yes. That's why we left." She thought about this. Then she hugged me, her small arms tight around my neck. "I'm glad we left," she whispered. "Me too, baby, me too." Last month, I got a message from an unknown number. My first instinct was to block it. Arman had tried contacting me before through new numbers, always with apologies or accusations or demands. But something made me open this one. It was from Arman's brother, Ahmed. We'd been friendly once before everything fell apart. "Zaira, I know you probably don't want to hear from any of us, but I wanted you to know. Arman is in therapy, real therapy, not just court-mandated anger management. He's been going for over a year now. I'm not saying this to excuse what he did or to ask you to forgive him. I just thought you should know that he's trying to change. For himself, maybe, but also because he finally understands what he destroyed. I hope you and Amara are doing well. You deserve better than what our family gave you." I read the message 3 times. Then I wrote back, "Thank you for telling me. I hope he finds peace. We're doing well." That was all. No anger, no vindication, no need to rehash the past, just acknowledgement and closure. Because here's what I've learned. Revenge isn't about making someone suffer the way they made you suffer. Real revenge, the kind that actually heals you, is building a life so full of joy and purpose and peace that the person who tried to break you becomes irrelevant. It's succeeding so completely that their absence becomes a blessing instead of a wound. Every time I deposit money into my business account, that's revenge. Every time Amara laughs without fear in our home, that's revenge. Every time I make a decision about my life without needing anyone's permission, that's revenge. Every morning I wake up free. That's the sweetest revenge of all. I still have hard days. Trauma doesn't disappear just because you escape its source. Sometimes I hear a tone of voice that reminds me of Armand's anger and I freeze. Sometimes I have nightmares about being trapped again. Sometimes I question every decision, wondering if I'm being too cautious or not cautious enough. But then I look at my daughter, at my business, at the life I've built with my own hands and my own mind and my own courage. And I remember that I'm not the woman who stayed silent in that house. I'm not the woman who accepted cruelty as love. I'm Zaira. I'm a survivor. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a mother. I'm an artist. And I'm finally, beautifully, completely free. The other day, Amara asked me what I wanted to be when I was little. I wanted to be a lot of things, I told her. An artist, a designer, someone important. Are you important now? She asked. I smiled. I'm important to you. I'm important to myself. And baby, that's the only kind of important that really matters. She nodded, satisfied, and went back to her coloring book. If I could go back and talk to the woman I was 5 years ago, the one who thought she had to stay, who thought leaving was impossible, who believed she was too weak or too trapped or too broken, I would tell her this. You are stronger than you know. The courage you think you lack, it's already inside you, waiting for the moment you need it most. The life you dream about, the freedom you crave, the peace you deserve. It's all possible. It won't be easy. There will be nights you cry yourself to sleep, days you doubt everything, moments you want to give up. But keep going, keep planning, keep believing that you deserve better. Because you do. And one day, you'll stand in a home that's truly yours, with a child who knows what real love looks like, and a business that proves your worth isn't determined by anyone but you. And you'll realize that leaving wasn't the end of your story. It was the beginning of the one that actually matters. So here's my message to anyone reading this. Anyone living in a situation that steals your joy, your voice, your very self. Leaving is terrifying, yes. But staying is worse. And you are stronger, smarter, and more resilient than the person trying to control you will ever be. Your life is yours. Take it back. Because the best revenge isn't destruction. It's resurrection. It's rising from the ashes of who you were forced to be and becoming who you were always meant to be. And trust me, that kind